Evening all. Welcome to our third talk of the week. Continuing the flavour of Migweek 2025, we have a talk from the third of the bird observatories in Yorkshire today, and even I would say arguably the best one, but certainly for all-round birding, getting on Harry's good books before we start. Yeah, welcome everyone. Just a few announcements before we get to the main event. As far as events and scheduling for tomorrow, so we've got ringing again at South Landing. The shop will be open again in the morning. The VisMig, importantly, tomorrow is at Hummonby Gap, so it's not at Bridlington Links in the morning. It's at Hummonby Gap from 7:30, and of course, then we have the talk tomorrow evening at the Living Sea Centre by Johnny Mack. So that's the order of events tomorrow. As for today, there was quite a bit of focus on the sea for the first time this week. So there was 21 Pomerine skewers seen. There was a grey fowler up late afternoon, went north. Bit of wildfowl again, Caspian gull, Mediterranean gulls as well. So quite a bit of interest there. The Pomerine skewers moving displaced and then moving north has been quite a feature at several watch points today, from eastern Scotland down to Spurn. Though passerine wise, the barred warbler turned up for its 17th day at South Landing, which has managed to evade many of us who have been down there this week. I think there was 6 yellow-browed warblers, Siberian chiffchaff, which was quite vocal at Old Fall. So quite a few things. There's lots of, well, I say lots. We got 4 Chetty's warblers, which I think is a local record count in the Thornick area today as well. So a bit to see. I think tomorrow similar. Not expecting a lot of migration. There are a few blackbirds and redwings coming in off. I suspect there'll be a few maybe tomorrow, but not an awful lot of migration happening. I think it's a case of trying to find what's been missed so far. Maybe Friday and particularly Saturday looking more promising. So that's the order for tomorrow. So on to tonight. Delighted to say we're joined by Harry Appleyard, the Assistant Warden at Spurn, who's going to be talking about the Bird Observatory there, all sorts of stuff. So Harry is originally from Milton Keynes. He's a keen birder, but he's also got interest in damselflies, dragonflies, and butterflies. He's also a keen photographer, I know. He came second in the Countryfile calendar, I believe, and with an image there. So look forward to seeing some of his images perhaps tonight. So I'll stop there and say, Harry, thank you very much for coming tonight, and I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, everybody. I'll just share my screen. And there we go. Cool. There we go. It's been a few years since I've done one of these. There we go. So welcome to Spurn, the mission and transformation of the mainland bird observatory. I've had the pleasure of working at Spurn for more or less about 4 years now. Originally, I started training as a conservation trainee with Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, and after a series of roles with them, I hopped into Spurn Bird Observatory as their assistant warden this year, and it's been a really fantastic year. I've had a few lifers, some really exciting migration watches, and some brilliant other wildlife along the way. But today's, or tonight's even's talk is going to be a bit of a retrospective one, looking at the history of bird observatories and how Spurn Bird Observatory has become the wonderful place that it is today. So, origins of bird observatories. So we have Heinrich Gartke, I might have butchered that name, who in his 20s visited Heligoland, became fascinated with the world of birds migration, and spent 4 years studying the area. And then in his later years, that image was not taken while he was 23. He published a book about birds and their movements in the area. And also within that same time period, John Cordeau pioneered large-scale migration watching across the UK. He approached lighthouses and lightship keepers in order for them to help monitor migrating birds around coastal hotspots all around the UK. And in the 1860s, he identified Spurn as a fantastic place for ornithology, several decades before the Spurn Bird Observatory was established. So even many, many years before we started the daily log, people were catching on to the idea of Spurn magic. And a few more bird observatories or monitoring stations that popped up around a few decades later on. Stockholm in 1933 had Heligoland, and then this one, which again, I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of that one. Rossitten, there we go, 1901. So the mission of bird observatories, which was established in 1946, around the same time that Spurn Bird Observatory was established, was a field station cooperatively manned for the purpose of making continuous observations on migrant birds and for catching, examining them and marking them. And that, to some degrees, in many ways, has still continued to this day with many observatories around the UK. And this has taken on many different forms of recording. There's bird ringing, regularly maintained ringing programs, daily logs, which culminate records from not only birders working in the area, trained ringers and ornithologists that are paid and professional. There are also day visitors, like many people that will be coming to Spurn throughout the year, regular birders that make an annual pilgrimage to visit during the migration periods. So it's a very cooperative effort from professionals and people enjoying their hobby of birding and photography, visiting these areas throughout each and every year. So in order to become an accredited bird observatory with the Bird Observatories Council, there are several main requirements. You need to have census on 75% of the migration days during the peaks migration. So that is March to May, and then August to October. You also have to have a clear established recording area. So at Spurn, our particular recording area covers not only the Spurn Peninsula, but also some of the immediate area in Kilnsea, where we have Spurn Bird Observatory and several of our own plots of land, and also the nearby village of Easington. There'll be bird population recording through Webb's counts and other means of surveying throughout the year. We also have to provide public accommodation with cooking facilities, which we are blessed very much so at Spurn. Accommodation has changed a bit at Spurn over the years. There may be some of you that remember staying in the Warren Cottage down by the beach, which a few years ago was then acquired by Yorkshire Wildlife Trust as volunteer and training accommodation. And Spurn Bird Observatory purchased a much newer built house in Kilnsea, which has several bedrooms. There are dormitories upstairs, full working kitchen downstairs. And then if you want to stay by yourself or in a small party, we have a private room downstairs where all bedding and towels are provided. So, yeah. And then we also have publicly available data and research. You can keep up to date with sightings via our website, but then you can also find much more detailed observatory counts and daily logs on Trek Tellen, which collates bird observatory sightings and migration hotspot studies from all across the world. And then also a big one is the bird ringing. I've got a lovely picture of a stock dove here, which I'm told, having never seen one in the hand, are very smelly when you have them in the hand ringing them. So yeah, very beautiful birds, but very pungent apparently. And then just to give you an idea of the data from across observatories, not all of them will monitor to the same frequency throughout the year. We are one of the 12 that monitor bird populations every day of the year. Naturally, some days and some periods are going to be quieter than others, but all the species matter and culminate into these daily records. So if you do find yourselves visiting the Spurn area, please do forward on your sightings of any species you have in the area. They do not have to be new in migrants. They don't have to be super rare birds. Everything matters. And then bird ringing has also changed very much over the years. In previous years, a lot of it was based on sort of in-hand assessments with the plumage, the structure, the age of the bird, the measurements and the weight. But these days we are able to supplement the ringing with much more expansive means of tracking and gathering data. So we have color ringing. At Spurn, we are also now carrying out MOTIS tagging and atlas tagging, whereby birds that are passing through or past the Spurn area in a certain distance can ping us at the receivers, and then we can find out what the bird is, what direction it's heading in. And this is a set of projects that very much help us to track some of those lesser known species and their migration routes, especially in species like yellow-browed warbler, which have dramatically changed their migration route over the past few decades. And we can hopefully start to find out more about why and where these birds are traveling the way that they do, and also the ages that these birds are when they are traveling in certain directions at certain times of year. There's also fecal sampling, feather sampling, which very much helps for some of those proper birders birds like Seneger's stonechat, which do require that extra bit of verification for identification. And the same could be said for some of the warblers like Siberian chiffchaff and some of the more unusual warblers that will pass through here in the spring and the autumn. And then also nowadays in bird observatories, there's a lot more opportunities for youth. We have birding awards given as part of the Martin Garner Awards at Migfest nowadays on an annual basis. We're also welcoming younger volunteers to our volunteers every year, seasonal volunteers, whereby people can stay for a season every year. If they're lucky, they can stay on for multiple seasons, helping us carry out observatory duties, looking after the business, monitoring the birds, and also finding some amazing stuff in their downtime and during their work time along the way. Get some really fantastic finds from the volunteers that come here, and some of them don't even need training. A lot of the youth and the volunteers that come to places like Spurn and other observatories really bring their A game from their local patches, and it's really rewarding to be at the forefront of giving these guys the full Spurn experience and seeing them enjoy the magic like so many other familiar Spurn birders do. And also there are several bird observatories that own and manage their own sets of land. We have several plots of land, again, around the Chianti area, including sort of some small wooded areas that are designed to attract warblers, various insect species, and also help to harbour local reptiles, mammals, and amphibians. And other observatories are similar. Some of them have much more expansive, larger recording areas which they oversee, and funding and grant applications for countryside stewardship, skewership schemes. So that's probably more for sea watching. Stewardship schemes can help them to own more land and also vigorously monitor greater plots throughout the year as well. And then Spurn, just like any other bird observatory recording area, is a very unique place. Spurn is far different to my landlocked home patch. It's a very remote coastal location that's deeply rooted in human history and natural history. It's a place which I think has something for everyone. If you're interested in insects, there's plenty to keep you busy during the spring and summer. We've had a fantastic year for dragonflies and butterflies here this year, lots of scarce and rare species. In terms of birds, we've had just over 400 species, which is, well, the majority of Yorkshire's species, which now sits at around 470 species. Spurn is around the 403, 404 mark, including some very recent additions in recent years. And Spurn is a location which is essentially destroying itself and healing itself at the same time through the process of longshore drift. So even though it's maintained this very narrow strip coming out into the Humber estuary in the North Sea for hundreds, if not thousands of years, the shape of it is ever changing every day through the course of the tides, especially during the autumn and winter, which can bring some very, very big tides and storm surges. On average, the Holderness coast will lose about 1.5 meters of the coast every year, but at Spurn during a single night, we can easily lose quite a bit more than that. And this is a picture that I took during Storm Corrie, I believe it was, in late January 2022, near the recently moved Sea Watch hide at the time, which luckily was actually quite a bit further back from where this wave is hitting. But yeah, it just goes to show the power of the North Sea is not to be messed with, even though it can bring some really good birds. And then this is just a diagram showing you an idea of the funneling effect of migration down the East Yorkshire coast. Many of them follow a southeasterly trajectory. And at Spurn, you can have the front row seat for witnessing this migration if you come down basically to any open spot in the recording area. But some of the best places to watch that are from the Warren Watch Point and the Sea Watch Hide, down in the north end of the recording area, and then further south on some of the open stretches on the peninsula. There are some species that routinely will follow the trajectory of the landscape and go on sort of maybe a more southwesterly route when they cross the Humber. Things like redwings, siskins, hirundines. Others may cut directly across the sea in a more sort of easterly direction, heading for the Wash. Others, like corn buntings and yellowhammers, habitually U-turn, head back north, and reorientate themselves on a more direct route, probably crossing the Humber a bit further inland. So some of the early days of recording some of Spurn's rare birds and just birds in general came through very detailed sketches and field notes. And this one shows a stilt sandpiper, the first stilt sandpiper written, which was recorded at Beacon Ponds in 1954. And last year we had one which almost arrived. I think it was only a few days off from when the anniversary of this particular bird would have been visiting last year. And then we also have a black lark from 1984, which would be an absolute dream to find. It's not a bird I hear very much at all about these days. So yeah, this is one I'm very much hoping to find in one of my morning surveys. And then also through the digital age of bird observatories, we are blessed with various means of communication and outreach. We have a website where you can find, again, our latest sightings. You can submit your own, and you can also find details about our science and research. We also have our local WhatsApp groups, which you can join if you are a friend of Spurn, a member of the observatory, where you can get up-to-date news on rarities and scarcities seen in the area. And again, we also have social media where we can promote our work and events. And then again, this is just a picture to give you an idea of track telling. It's a fantastic website. If you hover over some of these birds, particularly the passage migrants, you can find out where they've been recorded across the recording area. And fantastic aspect to these websites and these counts in the modern age is that we can supplement them with changes to the numbers, which may come in with later submissions from that day. And if someone has come and retrospectively ID'd a mega that they may have found a few days before, we can then add that to the data and pray that it's still there and we can go and twitch it. And then the beauty of every year at Spurn is that afterwards we get these fantastic annual reports which culminate records of birds, our science and projects in the area, and also records of other wildlife. And some of my favorite aspects to these books are the rare encounters sections, in which any bird that has been recorded between 1 and 4 times at Spurn gets written about by their finders, and usually has some fantastic photos and illustrations to go with. And then we also contribute to the Global Bird Fair every year. Had a really good time there this year. It was my first bird fair. Lots of outreach, lots of talking to other birders from across the country, other parts of the world. And then so ringing, going up to the end of 2023, so looking a bit further back, we'd had well over 500,000 birds ringed and 250 species ringed, which has actually increased since. I've got a few notes with some updated numbers just here. So to the end of 2024, we had 245 species ringed. So there has been a few more, and also 4,000, now over 4,000 recoveries. So it is rapidly increasing in terms of recoveries. And again, with things like the MOST and Atlas tagging, we can find out information of birds passing through the area without them even to reach the hands of ringers. So there's more ways we can find out about birds traveling through the area and exact individuals. And then for the really exciting part of the talk, my favorite aspect of the talk is a year at Spurn. And this culminates a collection of some amazing photos taken by Spurn visitors and Spurn regulars over the years. No 2 years at Spurn are ever the same. I think if you haven't been to Spurn before, it's definitely really good to visit during April and May, and really good again around the middle of summer and into the autumn. But if you have the time and you have the curiosity, it's well worth visiting throughout the year, every year, because every year and every day offers something different and new potential. So winter, highly underrated season, but there is plenty to keep it interesting at Spurn. So if you come and have a look at the Humber at Spurn, you'll see that we are blessed with hundreds of brent geese, mainly dark belly brent geese, which come from Siberia. You can get them here from generally September onwards and well into the winter, boosting their numbers quite quickly towards the end of the year. And then we also get smaller numbers of the scarcer pale-bellied brent and black brent from the east, from the west, I should say. And you can just about see the black brent in the right corner, sporting that nice thick white collar. Then we also have variable numbers of snow buntings. Some winters are much better, but others than them here. You can get some really lovely views of these feeding along the beach, maybe around the edges of Beacon Lagoons. And in some years, towards the end of their stays here, from late winter into spring, you can get some big flocks of them. I think the largest one I've seen here is about 42 birds in March 2022. Glaucous gull, who doesn't love a gull? This is a bit of a scarcer visitor to the UK these days, but we have had 1 or 2 put in an appearance in at Spurn this year, including a really nice adult much earlier in the year, which I think was either a spring bird or a late winter bird. Ivory gull, absolute dream. Sadly, this wasn't seen by me. One bird that you can see if we get some really strong winds coming down from the high Arctic in the winter. Hopefully, would absolutely love to see one of these. And then also one of the more regular species we get to see a lot during the winter months is the barn owl. You can find these in just about any grassy area of the Spurn recording area, even along the peninsula. And where you find barn owls, you're very likely to find short-eared owls. We're just starting to get the first few of the autumn here. There's not been many recorded yet, but there have been a few knocking around the fields of Easington Strait and around the Triangle as well, not far from the Bird Observatory. And then one of Spurn's biggest megas, and certainly a controversial one, the Tangmarm's owl, which many people initially, long story short, didn't know about at the time, and only a handful of people were able to see it while it was here. Despite those really unfortunate access and suppression issues at the time, it was a fascinating bird which provided no shortage of pellets, which were studied. I remember reading about some of them having parts of tree creeper in there, which is quite a good bird to get down at the point. So the Tangmarms definitely took advantage of that. And yeah, a bird which many people are hoping will be repeated at Spurn sooner rather than later. Spring, a time full of wheatears, best time to see wheatears at Spurn. We do get a surplus of them later in the year, coming back through in the late summer and early autumn, but spring is always when they look their best, especially those more tanned males you can get into late April and early May. We also do very well for black redstarts. This year was quite a funny year. Usually you'd expect wheatears to outnumber the black redstarts significantly, but for several weeks during the spring period, black redstarts were outnumbering the wheatears here. And we've held on to some quite long-staying birds this year. Over the past few weeks, we've had a very popular bird which has been hanging around the Humber wall just in front of the Crown and Anchor pub recently, which is also just opposite our Bird Observatory as well. They don't breed here, but they are a very regular passage migrant that has actually been recorded through many of the months of the year as well. And spring is also the best time to find firecrests at Spurn. We can get a few of them coming from the continent in the autumn, but spring is the best time to find them generally. And if you're lucky, you can get them in full song here, which is always lovely to experience. And then this year, we've also done very well for common cranes. We've actually had a couple that have been residing a bit further north, up at Welwick this year, which were sort of frequently reported from late summer onwards. But during the spring period, we quite regularly had cranes either heading south through the Spurn area or U-turning over Kilnsey. and this was one of two that provided an incredibly low flyover over the observatory one day in the spring. Absolutely incredible to watch. And we also do all right for Gargany. We can get them in the spring and the autumn periods, but again, always best to see them when you've got the spring drakes in their stunning breeding plumage. Yellow wagtails, we've had a fantastic year for yellow wagtails, not just in the numbers, but also in the variety in them. One particular form that we tend to see is the blue-headed wagtail, which comes not from far away in mainland Europe, but we have also seen some of the sort of odd job intergrades between the races, and also the much scarcer grey-headed wagtail in spring as well, which is fantastic to see. And then the rock thrush, really mega bird, one eagerly awaiting to get at Spurn myself. They've only had just over 30 records in the UK, and Spurn is blessed to have a couple of those, including this one, which I believe was found in 2013. And red rump swallows, we do very well for these. We are probably nationally one of the most reliable places in the UK to see these. So much so that we no longer actually have to describe them for the Yorkshire Naturalist Union, if you do get them at Spurn, that is. This year we've been blessed with at least two birds. There was one at the end of April and one not long after in May. Really fantastic birds. Love seeing them hawking around. Fantastically long streamers, which I think even these pictures don't do justice. And we've also had a really productive year for bee eaters. If you come here between probably May and August, and you're here on a nice warm sunny day, look out for these on our power lines and hawking above catching bees. Sometimes we get the odd flock passing through. This year we've done quite well in just getting quite a few records of single birds, which we think may actually link to one particular individual that was residing locally. And in 2022, we had a bird which had quite a distinctive gap in his primaries, which turned out to be one of the birds from the breeding flock in Trimmingham in Norfolk. So some of these will be doing exploratory flights, and some of these are potentially residing around similar areas of habitat to where they would be nesting elsewhere in mainland Europe. And we also from time to time get breeding marsh warblers here. They're a classic Spurn overshoot. If you're lucky, you can enjoy one of these in full song, giving some absolutely amazing mimicry during the spring periods and in some of the quieter areas of our recording area. Some have managed to successfully breed in recent years as well. And then one of Spurn's true rarities, one of the rarest of the rare, is this absolutely stunning Memora's warbler from the Mediterranean. And this is only the second one for Britain. This was caught and ringed here in 1992, slightly just before my time. And then a really popular visitor that we had during the spring of last year was this collared flycatcher. Not an annual bird in the UK, so summer plumage male is a fantastic rare treat. This is a picture I took of one that was ringed in Churchfield, one of our plots in Kilnsey, and luckily it stayed for about a day or two at least afterwards. So many people were able to come from across the country and twitch this bird quite happily feeding in one of the nearby hedgerows. And towards the end of spring and into summer, we get a spectacular movement of swifts. You can come here and see a near constant, if not constant movement during some of the better days in the summer periods. But we are still yet to beat the record count of 21,000 from 2010 from a single day. And if you're lucky, along some of the dark common swifts, you may happen to spot a pallid swift with very much sort of lighter grey tones, very strong eye mask and broader wings. This is one that I photographed heading south on the 13th of June, which is quite an unusual spring record here. You're more likely to get them here in the autumn period, but certainly one to look out for if you visit during June and July as well. And then if you're an extra bit lucky, you can get a Pacific swift as well, which is another dream bird. And also a big part of the summer work for not only obs staff like myself and volunteers is facilitating the Little Tern watch on Beacon Lagoons, which involves Yorkshire's only colony of little terns. It's a very intense watch program whereby we monitor them 24/7 including night and day, from when the first egg is laid to when the last chick fledges. I had to think about what I said then, because earlier I almost said from when the first chick is laid to when the last egg fledges. But I assure you it's the other way around. And it's a fantastically rewarding project. It's very intense. The monitoring, you always have to be on your toes, looking out for potential disturbances, which could be people walking past with dogs, or people that are not aware of the ground nesting shorebirds. You also have to keep an eye out for potential predators, potential threats and disturbances to the colonies. Even things like pheasants can be very disruptive and disturbing to the colonies. But luckily this year, they enjoyed a largely instant-free breeding season, and we had a fantastic 105 pairs raising around 110 chicks, which is almost double from 2024. So that was a fantastic effort in conjunction with the RSPB, Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, and our dedicated team of volunteers and paid term warden staff as well. And then autumn, final season, saving the best till last. Brilliant season. So autumn, some of you may think of autumn as the trees going yellow in October, November, or hedgehogs starting to hibernate in your garden. But autumn at Spurn can start as early as June, as it would in many other bird observatories. And a classic herald of autumn is the green sandpiper. By the time you're finally getting out your barbecues for those first warm days of the summer, a symbol of autumn is already arriving back at Spurn, usually in small numbers, but we can do quite well for them dropping by in small numbers across the smaller, more shallower areas of water across the recording area. We also get fantastic murmurations of waders, which gradually build from late June onwards. And these murmurations, some amazing ones, which we saw over the hump today, are made with lots of different species of waders, and not easily one of the most colourful contributors to them. We won't see them here during the breeding season, but as they're starting to come out from the breeding season, a lot of them will be retaining their amazing red plumage and making some absolutely fantastic shapes as they weave through the sky over the Humber. And then some of the less regular waders we get here, pectoral sandpiper, which hasn't been recorded every year in Spurn birding history. Some years are much better than others. We are currently enjoying a long-staying bird, not this particular one, but one that has been very showy on Easington Lagoons near the north end of our recording area in the past few days. We've also had the sharp-tailed sandpiper, which normally would be wintering in Australia, but we've been blessed with 2 records of these over the years. And similarly to the rock thrush, these have only had about 30 records nationally, so a real mega Spurn bird. And then last year in the middle, I had the pleasure of finding this least sandpiper on Kilnsey wetlands, which initially flew through the reserve and was luckily refound by Paul Willoughby, another one of the local birders. And that showed incredibly well for about a couple of hours on the deck. It gave a few people a chance to come and see it from further afield. The world's smallest shorebird, classic American wader, and I think this was the 42nd or the 43rd British record. So a tiny bird, but certainly big in terms of being a mega. And autumn is also the best time to see black terns at Spurn. We do get some really nice summer plumage birds coming through during the spring and early summer periods, but this late period from August into September is the best time to see black terns here, as they depart with huge flocks of common terns and Arctic terns heading south over the sea and out of the Humber as well. And then we are also blessed semi-regularly with some long-tailed skewers, which can be seen mainly over the sea, but you can also get some excellent views of them over the Humber, like this juvenile bird that was photographed here. And then also in the autumn period, we do quite well in getting a surplus of some of those scarcer spring migrants, which we may only see a handful of times around April and May. And we can get some very big arrivals of pied flycatchers, some of which will be coming over from the continent into August and September. And then also this year, we've also had finally an influx of glossy ibis. We haven't had quite the numbers that other reserves and observatories have had around the UK. This was our biggest flock involving 7 birds passing through into the triangle a few weeks ago. Had a fantastic view of these as I was doing one of my morning point counts. And then since we've had intermittent sightings of singles and pairs coming in and out of the area, and also frequently visiting Welwick and Alstrays area, just outside our recording area, a bit further to the north, up the Humber. And then also a big part of autumn, which is sort of Christmas come early at Spurn, is Migfest, the Spurn Migration Festival, which was the brainchild of 2 figurehead Spurn birders, which are sadly no longer with us, Martin Garner and Andy Roadhouse. It's a fantastic event. If you've never been to Spurn or really experienced bird migration at this time of year at a coastal location, I'd highly recommend that you seek out tickets for next year. There are lots of migration watches, guided walks across the recording area, including the peninsula and the Easington area, as well as Kilnsey. There are also talks hosted by world-famous ornithologists and birding writers. A really, really great time. No 2 Migfests are ever the same. And last year especially was definitely one to remember. Fantastic with pallid harriers, wrynecks, bee-eater, greenish warbler. It was a really, really amazing year for it last year. And this year we were blessed with an amazingly confiding red-necked phalarope, which fed nonchalantly in front of many, many attendees, and plenty of other birds on visible migration as well. And a big contributor to the visible migration watches during Migfest, especially this year, is the meadow pipit. You can easily see these into the tens of thousands during mid to late September here. And this year during Migfest, one of the peak counts involved over 9,600 birds heading south. And then probably one of the most popular birds, if not the most popular bird of Migfest last year, was this fantastic red-breasted flycatcher, adult male, showing incredibly well around the garden of the Crown and Anchor pub in Kilnsey. Wrynecks, again, around the triangle, dotted along the peninsula and in some of the local gardens, a few of which the homeowners may let you come and twitch. And we do get them in spring as well, but especially when we get those early easterlies during August and September, it's well worth coming and having a look for them around some of the grassy areas and roadside verges early in the mornings and during quieter days in the afternoons, see if they're out feeding on ants out in the open. And then this is a very famous Spurn twitch for a great snipe, which showed up just opposite the bluebell in Kilnsey. It's a fantastically confining bird. There's some amazing video of this bird online, sadly, before it was caught and killed by a local cat. And then little bunting, scarce but familiar visitor from the east. We do quite well for these around the Clubleys and Warren areas. We have actually had one visiting in the past few days, showing very well along the fence line there. And apparently they do get ringed here a bit as well. So if you're ever down at the Warren and here during the autumn periods, there's a good chance, after we've had some easterlies, that you may see the ringers catching a little bunting. Dusky warblers, sort of more of an October-November bird here. And in October 2016, on the 15th, we had a fantastic arrival of 10 of them across the recording area. And it was also around this particular period which there was a bird which many will fondly remember, Britain's first mainland Siberian centre. I mean, enough said. I don't need to say anything else about that bird. Just look at that. Just brilliant. Yeah, this is a fantastic bird found behind the yellow skip of a local birder's garden. And there was a very well organised twitch of this in place. Luckily, it stayed long enough for many people from across the country to come and twitch it, whereby there was a massive queue. People could have a quick look at it, take a few pictures, and if they wanted to see again, go to the back of the queue, and the queue would rotate. It was a fantastically handled twitch, and it's really, really amazing birds that I'd love to see it one day. Hopefully this autumn. Pallas's warbler, a bit more common than the Siberian accentor, but equally as lovely visually, if not better, maybe. And Spurn is quite a reliable place for these. Numbers can very much vary from one year to the next. Same with the more common yellow-browed warbler. But last year we were with a few sightings of these across the recording area, and it's actually a bird I've been meaning to catch up to for quite a while. And then white thrush, absolutely fantastic bird. Really, really want to catch up to one of these here. Not one that's happened here at Spurn in years, but hopefully the next one will come sooner rather than later. And two-bar greenish wall, fantastic bird. Several days around the canal scrape area, canal bushes, which are located not far from the Warren Cottage. Really, really confining bird, very mobile, but showing very well around the footpaths and roadside trees in that particular area. Rough-legged buzzard as well. We had at least 2 of these, I believe, in 2022, and the odd one in other recent years. When you get a textbook example like this with that solid brown belly patch and largely pale plumage across most of the rest of the body, they are really brilliant birds. I really enjoy the buzzards anyway. I love the variations and the different forms you can get in them. But yeah, rough-legged buzzards really are something to enjoy when they do pass by. And also autumn, best time of year to see movements of little auk, which can sometimes be quite distant out at sea, and then some of them, especially this one, can be very, very close in. And yes, so hope you've enjoyed this talk. As you can see, we are part of a fantastic network of bird observatories nationally, many of which I'm still yet to visit, and I look forward to doing so in the hopefully not too distant future. I've had a fantastic year here, and can't wait to enjoy more Spurn adventures here in the near future. Hope you've enjoyed this talk, and I will now quite happily take some of your questions.
Thanks, Harry. That was really, really good. Thank you very much. It's fantastic.
It's always hard to cram so much about Spurn. There's always going to be that one bird that you forget, or one aspect that you just don't get time for.
Quite a few of those birds I wanted to forget.
Sorry.
Oh, you're quite welcome. My next
door call the observatory at any time.
My next door neighbour's just had a yellow skip, so I'm going for I'm going to go for black-throated accenture and gazumpia. So
hopefully,
maybe
I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll drop everything as soon as I can.
Yeah, I've had several questions, and I've also had several comments, all of which will just basically reiterate my point. Thank you very much. That was fantastic. So in no particular order, membership numbers, friends of or membership, I presume that's on an upward curve. And is that, do you think, a result of the new observatory, or does something like Migfest make a big difference? Do you know?
Yeah, I think certainly the digital outreach that we have, and sort of the more ground presence that we have these days through volunteers and staff, and being able to promote ourselves more than ever before, I think that definitely helps. And especially when we do have some of these scarce and rare birds, especially when it's a mega or something that is nationally rare, that does bring in people from further afield. We're seeing especially so many young birders that are sort of getting into the game of birding and twitching, and that is bringing a lot of them towards us. So that naturally brings more engagement and more income to us. But certainly events like Migfest and our seasonal guided walks really help. Word of mouth really makes a difference as well, especially through things like the guided walks, whereby, we're not necessarily taking someone to a rare bird that is behind a yellow skip or in a sycamore tree in Kilnsey. But through the feedback people give and pass on to people, that sort of stuff really makes a difference. And I've seen it myself where people have come back year after year, and one year they might come back and it's totally different to the first year in which they thought it was amazing, and the next year might not be so full of scarcities or rarities the previous year, but they're really attracted to that notion of coming back and seeing what they can find. And I think that's what Spurn really thrives on, is just that sort of amazing uncertainty of not knowing what we're going to get. And the memberships that come through things like Migfest and just people's love and nostalgia for the area really do make a difference. And all of it contributes to maintenance of our facilities. It helps us with places like Kew behind me. Originally this was a small bungalow in Kilnsey, but now it's a much more modern sort of office and area of accommodation. So yeah, I think those events do really make a difference, but equally the birds do, and even other wildlife as well. Like recently, we've had the odd humpback whale visiting Spurn, and the amount of engagement on social media you can get from a 10-second video of a humpback whale goes through the roof. And you rewind a few years ago to a few decades back, and that engagement just wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
you've had over 400 species. What are you predicting as the next new bird for Spurn?
Oof. That's a very, very tricky one. Blackwing kite. That'd be a nice one. We could do with another blackwing still. Apparently, they were recorded here in the 1800s, but it's a massive blocker. It's a massive blocker. It would feel like a first for Spurn.
Yeah, it would.
Because there hasn't been one in living memory. And the name of the buzzard bustard escapes me. There was one of the bustards which was actually shot and eaten here many, many, many years ago, back when times were a bit different. So hopefully that'll be a nice repeat on people's lists rather than plates.
Yeah, thank you.
Black woodpecker, actually. That's one that's come to my head. Yeah, that's one everyone's dreaming of. That's one I'm dreaming of.
Okay. Well, that bounding down the point, that would look rather good, wouldn't it? You mentioned about the log. Do people get together to do the log nowadays, or is it all electronic?
So it's a mixture of both. We'll do in-person logs at the observatory, whereby guests can come and contribute their findings for the day. We do take eBird lists as well. Very, very handy these days. You can do checklists, or you can submit notes by taking pictures of your notebook or submitting sightings digitally via the Spurn Bird Observatory website. The only thing we do ask is that during peak periods of migration is that people note the locations and times in which they have found passage migrants, because especially as some of them travel around or feed around certain areas, helps us to collate and refine those counts a bit better at the end of the day, and for the annual reports further down the line as well.
Thank you. I got a message from Johnny. It says it was a McQueen's bustard. So.
Yes, that is the one. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. You also mentioned, you talked about the recording area. And was I right in thinking that once there was the observatory recording area and then a wider recording area, has that all been subsumed under one now?
Yeah, so I believe up until 2016, it was pretty much from Kilnsey southwards, so covering the triangle and the peninsula. But then since then, it's incorporated the rest of Kilnsey and then Easington nearby, which I think is totally just, because Easington still gets some fantastic sea watching, and many of the migrants will funnel into those lesser watched or lesser covered green corridors. I say lesser covered, there are plenty of birders covering them, but there are many of them that could easily go missed in the local gardens, and you're just as privy to an amazing fall of migrants there as if you decided to just cover Kilnsey or the peninsula for the day at this time of year.
Yeah. Thank you. I've just been asked, under the motor schemes, what species do you target? Is there a range of things that you would tag under motus, or is it anything?
So I know it's been attempted on jack snipe, and also yellow-browed warblers. Yellow-browed warbler is one of the main reasons for that project. We have Project Yellow-browed warbler, which encompasses other birds as well, but especially with the yellow-browed warbler, trying to track them as they're passing by the UK, passing by us, and trying to find out how old they are when they are coming through, because we know that many of them, as they're migrating through or past the UK, that they are first or second year birds if they're returning, but some of them do end up being adults as well, and really sort of trying to plug the geographical gaps in how they're migrating. But yeah, it is being carried out, and as with atlas tagging, it's being carried out across multiple species. But yeah, some of those scarcer and sort of previously perceived vagrant warblers really, I think, are at the forefront of those studies.
Yeah. Interesting. And any real data yet, or is it too early?
There has been some, none that I can recall off the top of my head right now, but we have had a few pings and recoveries with blackbirds and songthrushes, I believe, in recent years.
Yeah,
and most of those will have been within about 15 kilometers of Spurn, so not even passing over the recording areas. Kind of the beauty of the tags in that they don't have to be directly in the area. So definitely opens up the potential for a lot of other things that are tagged as well.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Are there opportunities for young birders to have jobs, or
absolutely, absolutely. So there is the position of assistant warden, which I'm in, and through volunteering and joining the Little Turn project, there are definitely ways into working at Spurn and working as a birder. I definitely encourage looking out for the Little Turn vacancies, which will probably be going out in the very early part of next year. And that'll mean being able to stay at the observatory as you would as a volunteer. So even if you don't get employment within that aspect of the observatory work, you can start building up steps towards working in ornithology through volunteering. You can come to our work parties, which are seasonal. We do a lot of them during the winter months when we're doing a lot more of the habitat works between breeding seasons. And the volunteering is absolutely fantastic as well. You get to really relish the area for the particular season that you join on. You get to have sort of exclusive behind the scenes at the observatory's work, and you become just as much part of the team as someone like myself or the head warden and the manager, fully integrated as part of the team. And if you want to work at Spurn or somewhere else, we'll help you with the supportive steps in the right direction. So it's a fantastic way of networking as well. Whatever you do at Spurn, whether you come as a volunteer or someone seeking out work, you can really build the connections and the steps into working into the sector quite quickly here.
That's great. Thank you very much. Sounds a very positive note to end on. So I haven't had any more questions through. So just to reiterate what I said when you'd finished, thank you very much. That was a fantastic update on the work of Spurn. Very impressive.
Thank you.
And, thanks for your
There's
time.
Always going to be more. There's always going to be more.
Indeed. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for listening in. Cheers.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. See ya.